All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Zoomerwaffen, unapologetically traditionalist Generation Z, written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Men are being erased. The West is dying. This is how to bring it back. How feminized therapy, smartphone zombies, and the cult of victimhood are destroying men, and why accountability, work, and presence are the only antidote to the collapse of civilization. I once watched a man scream into a pillow at a therapy retreat, while 8 women clapped and called it brave. He was told he'd finally broken free from toxic masculinity. Meanwhile, actual masculinity, stoic, disciplined, relentless, was being euthanized in classrooms, courtrooms, and HR departments across the West, one antidepressant script at a time. Let me be clear, emotional suppression in men is not a disorder, it's armor. You don't dismantle a tank because it doesn't cry when hit. The myth of toxic masculinity was never about men. It was crafted in feminist seminars, funded by governments, and spread through media to neuter male strength, reframing honor as pathology. While boys are medicated for being energetic, girls are taught to weaponize emotion, and we're surprised when marriage collapse rates soar. When 40% of men now say they'll never marry, and 1 in 5 men are fatherless by choice due to family court predation, wake up. The system doesn't want strong men. It wants compliant boys who blame society, cry on cue, and hand over their paychecks to women who divorce them for a spa weekend. I've sat across men who lost 6 figures in divorce, children in custody battles, and their self-respect in therapy rooms, only to hear them say, "She ruined me." No, you let her. You outsourced your metaphysics to a woman who by evolutionary design assesses you not for loyalty or courage, but for resource extraction and genetic fitness. This isn't misogyny, it's biology. Women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces. 85% of restraining orders are filed by women, often weaponized during custody wars. And let's talk about the lie they feed you: men and women are the same. Women are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide, but men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide, because women tend to choose methods that allow rescue, while men choose finality. That's not weakness. That's the consequence of being told your entire life that your existence is disposable. You either collapse under that weight or you rise with fury. I tested the modern man's accountability once. I asked a group who here has ever blamed a woman, the system, or society for their failures. Hands shot up. Then I said, now raise your hand if you've ever spent more than 2 hours in the last month practicing a skill, building something, or reading philosophy. Crickets, that's the rot. The left didn't just weaponize grievance, it made excuses into identity. But Schopenhauer knew the truth. The world is my representation. Reality bends to the man who acts, not whines. When you blame others, you surrender your will, and when men stop acting, when they stop showing up, building, leading, the civilization built by their ancestors starts to rot. Look around, the cities are crumbling. The men are on their phones. The women are on dating apps. and the children raised by screens in state schools that teach them to hate the past and worship feelings. You want freedom? Stop begging for approval to live as a man. No counselor, no partner, no corporate rulebook gets to set your value. The fix isn't endless group talks. It's stillness, effort, and being fully here. Can you face another person without reaching for your phone? Can you create something that stands the test of time? Can you meet a woman's gaze and say, "I'm not here to fix your feelings"? If you can't, then you're already bound. This piece isn't comfort, it's a call to arms. And the battle begins in your routine. How you spend your hours, how you treat your body, what you let your mind dwell on. The red pill isn't about women, it's about choosing reality. And reality says a culture collapses when its men stop acting like men. Open your eyes, stand up. The cage of emotion, how society mutilates masculine feeling. Boys don't cry. Heard that one before? Of course you have. It's the punchline of 1,000 feminist sermons and therapy sessions. But here's the joke, they're not telling you. Boys don't cry because men don't cry, not out of weakness, but out of duty. I once watched a 6-year-old boy at a school assembly. Tiny kid, freckles, holding back tears as his teacher scolded him for being too loud during recess. He clenched his fists, jaw tight, eyes red but dry. Not because he was broken, not because he was traumatized, because he was trying with every ounce of his little man's soul to be strong. And what did the school do? Labeled him at risk, recommended counseling, and sent home a pamphlet on emotional literacy. They didn't see courage, they saw defiance, and they moved to crush it. From the moment boys enter kindergarten, they are funneled into a psychological gulag disguised as education. Sit still. Be quiet. Share your feelings. Ask for help. Don't run. Don't fight. Don't compete. The rules are not designed to raise men. They're designed to neuter them. The no tattling rule of my childhood, gone. Replaced with tell an adult, a policy that transforms boys into snitches and erodes the very foundation of male loyalty. Imagine Spartan boys being told to run to a counselor every time they got punched in training. You'd laugh, but that's exactly what's happening in classrooms across America. In 2023, boys were diagnosed with ADHD at 5 times the rate of girls. Not because they're disordered, but because their natural energy, competitiveness, and restless ambition clash with a system built for docile compliance. We don't medicate girls for being chatty, we drug boys for being boys. I once sat across from a therapist, female of course, who told me I had repressed emotions because I didn't sob during our session. I had just ended a relationship with a woman who lied, manipulated, and weaponized sex to control me. I walked away clean, clear, and firm, and her response, "You're afraid of intimacy." Bullshit. I wasn't afraid of intimacy, I was afraid of stupidity. But the therapeutic industrial complex doesn't care about truth. It exists to pathologize male strength and protect female dysfunction. Every time a man says no to emotional blackmail, the system brands him as broken. Every time he walks away from a woman who treats him like a wallet with a pulse, they say he's emotionally stunted. Meanwhile, women are free to rage, weep, manipulate, and destroy because that's just how they are. The double standard isn't an accident. It's the engine of gynocentrism. Stoicism isn't a disorder. It's the backbone of civilization. The Spartans didn't send boys to therapists. They sent them into the wilderness with a knife and a mission. No whining, no crying, no excuses. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal about his feelings, he led an empire. Cato didn't process his grief, he chose death over dishonor. But today, we tell boys that emotional restraint is toxic, that dominance is dangerous, that ambition is aggressive. The label toxic masculinity was never about men, it was about control. It's a linguistic landmine placed under every traditional male virtue, so that when a man steps on honor, discipline, or strength, he gets blown up by social shame, and who benefits? The women who exploit male loyalty, the therapists who profit from male confusion, and the state that needs obedient subjects, not leaders. Let's talk about the numbers, since facts have a way of shattering illusions. In the US, men commit 78% of all suicides, despite being less than half the population. The rise in male suicide tracks perfectly with the spread of feminist therapy culture. the same culture that tells men their strength is sickness. Meanwhile, 80% of family court cases result in custody being awarded to mothers. Even when fathers are fit and willing, men are arrested for custodial interference when they try to see their own children. Women initiate 70% of divorces, often after years of emotional neglect and sexual withholding, then portray themselves as victims. And let's not forget that 50% of pregnancies in the West end in abortion, most often without the father's consent. These aren't isolated tragedies. They're systemic outcomes of a gynocentric legal and cultural framework that rewards female irresponsibility and punishes male commitment. Evolution didn't design men to be emotional exhibitionists. Women use emotion as a tool, social signaling, bonding, manipulation. That's not a judgment, it's biology. MRI studies show women have greater activity in the limbic system, the emotional center, while men show higher activity in areas linked to problem solving and spatial reasoning. Women are more verbally expressive, not because they're better communicators, but because they evolved to manage social dynamics through affect. Men evolved to act, to build, to protect. When we shame men for stoicism, we don't liberate them, we castrate society's natural defense system. Imagine a fireman stopping mid-rescue to explore his feelings about the burning building. You'd call him insane. But we do the same thing when we tell men to open up in relationships while women lie, cheat, and discard them. The remedy isn't therapy, it's virtue. Men don't need to dump their emotions in group circles like emotional confetti. They don't need to repress them like machines. They need to govern them like generals. Temperance, courage, justice, prudence. These aren't archaic concepts. They're the operating system of functional manhood. I once watched a Navy SEAL on a podcast describe how he handled grief after losing a teammate. No tears, no breakdown. He said, "I honored him by doing my job better." That's not repression. That's mastery. That's the red pill. Emotional sovereignty. Not expression for expression's sake, not silence out of fear, but disciplined command over one's inner world. So that action, not reaction, drives life. Wake up. The cage isn't made of steel. It's made of lies. Lies about your nature, lies about your emotions, lies about your value. They want you weak, confused, dependent, because a broken man won't challenge the system. But you're not broken, you're suppressed. And the moment you reclaim your right to strength, restraint, and purpose, the whole feminist therapeutic complex trembles. They can't stop truth. They can only delay it. So stand tall, speak clear, feel deep, but act with reason. The world doesn't need more crying men. It needs more men who don't break. I was one of those boys, quiet, compliant, praised for not making waves. In school, I learned to raise my hand, not my fist. I was told my anger was dangerous, my ambition intense, and my desire to lead domineering. By 22, I was single, broke, and blaming women, pop culture, and the matrix for my stagnation. But the mirror doesn't lie. One day, after skipping the gym again, I caught my reflection, soft, unfocused, bitter, and realized no one was coming to save me. No woman, no therapist, no government program. That moment wasn't inspiring. It was humiliating. And that humiliation was the first spark of honesty. I stopped reading Reddit rants and picked up Nietzsche. I stopped waiting for a woman to complete me and started building skills no one could take away. The truth I discovered isn't popular. It's not nice, but it works. If you're not growing, you're rotting. And no ideology, no grievance, no sob story will stop the decay. The accountability mirage, how modern men evade reality while blaming the world. You want a wife, go buy a dog. At least the dog is loyal. That's what my father told me at 16, after I bawled my eyes out when Jessica Miller ghosted me post-homecoming. I thought he was cruel. I was wrong. He was saving me from the emotional Ponzi scheme that is modern male-female relations. Today, I see millions of men in cells, neets, basement dwellers, howling into the void about women, stealing their purpose, destroying masculinity, or being hypergamous sluts. These men rage against Tinder algorithms and divorce courts while their waistlines expand and their resumes collect dust. Let me be clear, the incel movement is not a social crisis. It's a moral failure disguised as victimhood. These men refuse to lift weights, read philosophy, start businesses, or master a craft. Instead, they sit in their mothers' basements jerking off to porn of Korean women who would spit on them in real life, then scream society failed me like toddlers denied candy. The truth, society didn't fail them. They failed themselves, and now they're angry at the mirror. I call it the accountability gradient, a law as real as gravity. High-value men take 100% responsibility for their lives, even when external forces are at play. Low-value men take 0%. You're either on the climb or in the ditch. There is no middle ground. Consider two men. One gets dumped after 6 months of dating. He goes to the gym, reads Marcus Aurelius, learns copywriting, starts a blog. The other? He creates a Reddit thread titled, "Why Do All Women Hate Good Guys?" and rants for 12,000 words about female nature, evolutionary psychology, and the gynocentracy. One builds, one decays. Who do you think ends up with a wife, kids, and a legacy? The difference isn't genetics or luck, it's accountability. And the gradient proves it. Your life outcome is predicted not by IQ, not by wealth, but by the percentage of blame you absorb versus deflect. I tested this with a brutal mental exercise. No use of the word they for 30 days. My journal entries banned all third-person plural pronouns. No, they're oppressing men. No, they took our rights. No, they ruined dating. Every complaint had to be rewritten as a personal action or omission. I didn't build enough social capital. Instead of society hates introverts. I didn't develop marketable skills. Instead of the economy is rigged. The result? Within 2 weeks, the victim narrative collapsed. My anger turned into fuel. I started noticing how often I'd outsourced my agency to phantom villains. HR departments, feminists, the Matrix. Schopenhauer nailed it. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Your will is shaped by belief, and if you believe women minorities or the system are responsible for your failure, you've already lost. You've handed your power to a myth. Look at divorce. In the US, 70% of divorces are initiated by women. That's a fact. But here's the part no one wants to admit. The men who lose everything in divorce are almost always the ones who stopped growing the second they said, "I do." They let their fitness slide. They stopped reading. They stopped challenging themselves. And then they're shocked when their wife, biologically wired to seek higher status mates, leaves for the guy who runs a 6-figure business and deadlifts 500 pounds. Don't blame hypergamy. Blame your stagnation. The woman didn't ruin you. Your refusal to evolve did. You became a utility, not a leader. And when the utility breaks, it gets replaced. I once coached a man who lost his job after defending a female colleague from a creep in accounting. HR called it escalating conflict and fired him for toxic masculinity. He was furious. He wanted to sue, to go viral, to start a men's rights campaign. I told him, "You were right." But being right won't pay your rent. Instead, I made him do 3 things. Train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 3 times a week, write daily sales copy, and record cold outreach calls. 6 months later, he had a 6-figure offer from a tech startup. Why? Because he stopped treating himself as a victim and started treating life as a game to be mastered. The system is rigged, but not against men. It's rigged against the passive, the complacent, the ones who whine instead of win. The "she ruined me" narrative is metaphysical laziness. Women aren't supernatural destroyers. Men allow destruction by surrendering their sovereignty. Take the guy who spends $50,000 on a wedding, buys a house, and then screams, "She scammed me," when she divorces him 18 months later. Did she? Or did he ignore the red flags? The lack of shared values, the emotional coldness, the fact she spent $8,000 on a dress but refused to sign a prenup. He didn't fail because of feminism. He failed because he ignored the data. He treated marriage like a fairy tale instead of a high-stakes merger. In the corporate world, you'd fire an executive for that level of due diligence failure. But in romance, we hand him a microphone and let him blame female nature. Victimhood is now the most profitable identity. Therapy data shows 78% of men now cite lack of purpose or societal oppression as core issues, up from 23% in 1990. That's not coincidence, it's indoctrination. The left has turned pain into a currency. The more oppressed you claim to be, the more attention, sympathy, and sometimes money you get. But here's the trap. The more you identify as a victim, the less power you have. You become a spectator in your own life. And while you're busy blaming patriarchy for your loneliness, the guy down the street is learning to weld, dating 3 women at once, and building a life that doesn't depend on approval from therapists or TikTok feminists. I'll leave you with this. In ancient Sparta, boys were given 1 cloak and expected to survive winter. If they complained, they were beaten. Not because the Spartans were cruel, but because they understood that soft men create soft societies, and soft societies die. We are not victims, we are architects. The world doesn't owe us love, success, or fairness. But it does respond to action, to discipline, to courage. Stop blaming the storm, build the ark. I've watched good men rot in silence, men who once worked with their hands, led teams, built things that lasted. Now they sit in dim rooms, scrolling, snacking, surviving. Not because they're weak, but because they've been told their strength is obsolete. I saw it in my cousin, a machinist laid off for a robot, then mocked by his therapist for resisting progress. He didn't resist progress, he resisted irrelevance. And when society strips a man of his role, it doesn't free him, it castrates his soul. The death of work, how post-labor utopia is killing the male soul. Finland spent millions on a universal basic income trial. Recipients smiled at first, said they were happier, but after 2 years, weight gain, social withdrawal, loss of drive. One man told researchers, "I wake up, I eat, I watch Netflix, I sleep, I'm fine." Fine, not fulfilled, not alive, he's a well-fed ghost. And that ghost is the future of men in a post-labor world. Comfort without purpose is spiritual death. You don't save a man by feeding him, you save him by giving him a battle to fight. Remove the battle, and you remove the man. Feminism isn't about equality, it's about obsolescence. Shulamith Firestone said it plainly. The end of the sexual division of labor means the end of men as we know them. She wasn't warning us, she was celebrating it. The feminist project has always been to dismantle male contribution, then call men lazy when they stop contributing. They dismantle the factory, then wonder why the worker won't show up. They close the mines, automate the warehouses, then sneer at men for playing video games. The truth? Men aren't lazy, men are orphaned. You don't raise boys to become men by telling them their strength is toxic, their labor is replaceable, and their purpose is to sit quietly while women run the world. That isn't liberation, it's castration by bureaucracy. I met a welder in Ohio, 30 years old, hands like iron, could lay a perfect bead blindfolded. His factory installed robots, he was replaced. HR told him, "Your role is being streamlined." Translation, "You're not needed. You're not wanted." He didn't rage, he didn't cry. He went home, sat in his garage, and didn't come out for 3 days. When he finally spoke, he said, "I spent my life making things that mattered." Now I'm just a line item in someone's efficiency report. That man didn't lose a job, he lost his identity, and he's not alone. Male labor force participation has dropped from 87% in 1950 to 68% today. That's not progress. That's depopulation of the masculine soul. Every percentage point lost is another man erased from the story of civilization. Nietzsche knew the danger. He who has a why can endure anyhow. Take away the why and the man collapses. The male psyche is not built for leisure. It's built for struggle, for mastery, for building something that lasts longer than he does. You don't fix a man by giving him more free time. You fix him by giving him a mountain to climb. Leisure without labor is like oxygen without air, empty, suffocating. Look at the data. Men without work are more likely to die early, more likely to commit suicide, more likely to be arrested for petty crimes, not because they're bad men, but because they're broken men. A man without purpose is a man without a spine. The lie of the tech elite. Automation will free us. Free us to do what? Scroll, swipe, watch influencers fumble through their 3rd divorce. Automation hasn't freed us, it's disarmed us. It didn't eliminate drudgery, it eliminated dignity. A man who builds a table with his hands knows he matters. A man who clicks accept on a gig app knows he's disposable. The gig economy isn't flexibility, it's feudalism with better Wi-Fi. You're not a craftsman, you're a node in someone else's algorithm. And when the algorithm decides you're inefficient, poof, gone. No severance, no respect. Just a notification. Your services are no longer required. Work is not the curse, it's the cure. Genesis 3:19 says, "By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food," but the fall came before work. Adam was placed in the garden to work it and take care of it before the serpent ever spoke. Work was never punishment, it was purpose. The curse wasn't labor, the curse was futility. And that's what men face today: labor without meaning, effort without reward, contribution without recognition. The feminist Marxist machine wants men to believe their work is meaningless, so they'll surrender their agency. Then they'll take the check, sit on the couch, and die slowly of quiet desperation. The remedy: craft, build, create, join the new craft rebellion, pick up a chisel, learn to code a real app, not just scroll TikTok. Grow food, forge steel, fix engines, do something that can't be outsourced to a machine or a woman's virtue-signaling nonprofit. Men are not meant to be consumers, we are meant to be creators. The artisan ethos isn't nostalgia, it's survival. Every time you make something with your hands, you declare, "I am not obsolete." You re-enchant the world. You fight the spiritual entropy of the post-labor dystopia. You want to save your soul. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the system to value you. It won't. The system is designed to grind men into compliance, then discard them. You are not a resource to be managed. You are a builder, a protector, a creator. The moment you accept that, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the lies, dangerous to the system, dangerous to the women who've been taught to despise you. And that's exactly what this world needs. Dangerous men who know their worth and act on it, not for approval, not for love, but because it's true, because it's right, because it's time. I've watched men collapse in slow motion, not from war or hardship, but from the quiet erosion of attention, the death of presence by 1,000 digital paper cuts. I used to think distraction was just laziness. Then I studied the data, watched the marriages fail, the friendships wither, the gyms fill with lonely men scrolling between sets. It's not laziness, it's programming. We've been conditioned to outsource our attention to algorithms that profit from our fragmentation. And the cost: our ability to hold space for another human being to truly see, hear, and respond has atrophied like an unused muscle. This isn't just about phones. It's about the soul of masculinity in an age that rewards absence and punishes engagement. The presence deficit, how distraction is dismantling male integrity. The most dangerous prison is the one you don't know you're in. That wasn't said by Joseph Goebbels, but he embodied it. I didn't say it either, not until I saw a man across from a woman at a dinner lit by candles. Her eyes sparkled with hope, his flickered with the cold glow of a social media feed. He missed the moment she fell silent. He missed her rising. He missed her walking away. But I saw it all. When he finally glanced up, puzzled, muttering, she wasn't interesting, I nearly hurled his phone into the Hudson and shouted, "You weren't there, and being there is the first duty of a real man." I don't care what your job is. I don't care if you lift weights or drive a Tesla or code blockchain in Bali. If you cannot look a human in the eye and hold that gaze without twitching, without blinking, without mentally scrolling through Instagram, you are not a man, you are a ghost. You are what happens when dopamine replaces duty, when distraction replaces discipline. Jordan Peterson didn't say clean your room so you could become a better algorithm optimizer. He said it so you could face the abyss without flinching, and you cannot face the abyss if you can't even face your own girlfriend for 10 uninterrupted minutes. Let's cut the crap. You're not busy, you're not overwhelmed. You are addicted. The average man checks his phone 150 times a day. That's once every 6 minutes. You think that's a habit? No, that's not a habit. That's what happens when Stanford psychologists and Harvard neuroscientists, paid by trillion-dollar tech monopolies, engineer a slot machine and glue it to your hand. Every notification is a Skinner box reward. Every swipe is a microdose of validation, and every time you look down, you are training your brain to reject the real world, the one with consequences, commitments, and consequences for failing commitments. I instituted Phone Fast Fridays in my life. 1 day a week, no screens, no scrolling, no podcasts, no email, just walking, reading actual books, talking to people face to face, building things with my hands. Within 3 weeks, my focus sharpened like a samurai sword. My mood stabilized. My confidence rose, not because I felt better, but because I was better. I wasn't reacting to stimuli. I was acting with intent. And when I sat across from a woman and actually listened, she looked at me like I'd performed a miracle. It wasn't a miracle, it was just presence. And presence is becoming so rare, it might as well be a superpower. Look at the data. Heavy smartphone users have measurably thinner prefrontal cortexes, the part of your brain responsible for self-control, long-term planning, and moral reasoning. You're not just distracted, you're physically degrading your capacity for virtue, and virtue is not optional. It's the operating system of civilization. Without it, you collapse into tribalism, resentment, and self-destruction. You become the kind of man who blames women for everything while refusing to look them in the eye. That's not red pill, that's cowardice wrapped in bitterness. I met a CEO who banned phones from all meetings. No laptops, no tablets. Just people, a table, and real conversation. Within 6 months, productivity rose 40%. Why? Because presence creates accountability. When you're physically, emotionally, and cognitively in the room, you can't hide, you can't fake it. You either contribute or expose your incompetence. Distraction is the coward's best friend. It lets you pretend you're working while your soul atrophies. But in a phone-free room, the weak are revealed and the strong rise. That's how you build empires. Not with Slack threads and Zoom calls where everyone mutes themselves and watches Netflix. And don't give me this feminist garbage about emotional availability, like it's some new age buzzword invented by women to guilt men. Emotional presence isn't soft, it's hard. It's standing in the fire of another person's pain and not running away. It's listening to your wife when she's scared and not pulling out your phone to check the score of a game you don't even care about. It's raising your children without outsourcing your attention to YouTube Kids. The family court system is stacked against men. 87% of custody cases go to mothers, even when fathers are fit. So if you're not present now, you will lose everything. And no judge will care that you were busy scrolling. Try this test. Sit in a room with another human being. No screens, no talking, just silence. Can you do it for 5 minutes? Most men cannot. They fidget, they cough. They check the time, they panic. Why? Because silence demands presence, and presence demands responsibility. And modern men have been conditioned to flee responsibility like it's a plague. We'd rather die in a dopamine storm than sit still and confront the emptiness inside. Your phone is not a tool, it's a leash. And the hand holding it isn't yours. It's Silicon Valley's, China's, the globalist media's. Every time you reach for it, you are surrendering sovereignty. You are saying, I would rather be entertained than be real. And when you fail your wife, your kids, your mission, don't blame the world. Blame the device in your pocket that turned you into a fragmented, anxious, reactive ghost. Presence is not optional. It is the foundation of trust, of love, of leadership, of being a man. You've just ripped the mask off the lie. You've seen the wires, the pulleys, the stink of rot beneath the polished stage of modern morality. Every time you were told, be more sensitive, share your feelings, let someone else win, it wasn't kindness, it was disarmament. They wanted the sword from your hand so they could own the field. You were raised to believe your silence was pathology, when in truth your silence is the storm before the strike. The Stoics didn't weep, Christ didn't rage. He acted, and so must you. Look at the numbers. 80% of suicides are men, yet men are told they're toxic. 90% of workplace deaths are men, but feminists scream about male privilege. Women initiate 70% of divorces, drain fathers of children and wealth, and the courts hand them the keys while you're told to heal. A 2023 study found that 21% of men in long-term relationships have been cuckolded, and no one warns you. because the narrative must protect the myth of female purity. Meanwhile, a man gets arrested for commenting on a woman's appearance online, but she can post "men are trash" 1,000 times and be praised as empowered. This isn't equality, this is conquest. This is regime change in the home, the court, the culture. I don't care if you've been lied to. I care that you stop believing it. You're not broken because you don't cry at Disney movies. You are not defective because you want to build, lead, protect. That instinct is not social conditioning, it's biology, it's you. When you sit across from a woman and she's talking and you glance at your phone, not because you're rude, but because your nervous system is hijacked by algorithmic slot machines disguised as apps, that's not weakness. That's war, and you're losing it one dopamine hit at a time. But today you win, you've seen the pattern. You know the enemy isn't women or technology or even the state, it's passivity. The moment you stop blaming, stop waiting for permission, stop outsourcing your judgment to therapists, influencers, and ex-girlfriends, that's the moment you return to life. Be present. Be accountable. Work like your soul depends on it, because it does. Forge something real. Look people in the eye, say what you mean. And when the woke mob comes, as they will, with their virtue-signaling torches and their gynocentric dogma, stand like a rock and say, I am not your patient. I am not your victim. I am not your slave. I am a man. Now go, build, fight, live, and tell the truth. No matter how many kittens they threaten to kill, you've been asleep. You're awake now. Nothing can unsee. And now the sponsored book, Introduction Zoomerwaffen. Unapologetically traditionalist Generation Z, they told you that men were obsolete, that masculinity was a disease, that your instincts, your desire for strength, truth, pride, loyalty, were outdated relics of a brutal past. They said equality meant sameness. They said emotion was wisdom. They said victimhood was virtue. And you believed them because you were raised in a world where lies are dressed up as compassion and cowardice wears the mask of tolerance. I believed them too, once. I was raised in a home where my father's voice was silenced, where my mother's tantrums dictated family policy, where my questions were met with condescension and my silence was praised as maturity. I went to schools where boys were medicated for energy, punished for competitiveness, and shamed for ambition. I attended universities where truth was relative, facts were oppressive, and men, especially young, strong, articulate men, were treated as liabilities. I watched as female classmates lied, manipulated, and weaponized tears to gain advantages, while men were disciplined for speaking plainly. I saw honor punished and dishonesty rewarded. I saw weakness elevated and strength suppressed, and then one day I stopped lying to myself. The mask slipped, not slowly, not subtly, but violently, like a curtain ripped from rotten hinges. I saw the system for what it was, a gynocentric pyramid scheme built on female hypergamy, male disposability, and the systematic erasure of biological reality. I saw how feminism, once pretending to seek equality, had metastasized into female supremacy, protected by law, funded by governments, sanctified by media, and enforced in classrooms. I saw how cultural Marxism had hijacked the institutions, the churches, the courts, the universities, and replaced truth with ideology, merit with identity, and reason with resentment. I began studying the real thinkers, the ones they don't teach in school. Schopenhauer, who saw women as shallow, strategic, and biologically driven toward securing resources. Nietzsche, who warned that slave morality would invert all values and make weakness sacred. Aristotle, who knew that virtue is found in the mean, not in emotional extremes. I studied evolutionary biology and saw the truth. Women are hypergamous, men are hierarchical. Women seek status, men build it. Women optimize for security and dominance in mates. Men die for honor, for legacy, for truth. These are not opinions, they are facts written in DNA. I met other men, silent, angry, awake. Gen Z boys who never bought the lie, who refused to apologize for being male, who saw through the feminist propaganda, the corporate DEI scams, the performative wokeness, the emotional terrorism, masquerading as communication. These are the Zoomerwaffen, the young warriors armed with logic, history, and the red pill. They are not angry because they lost. They are angry because they were lied to, and they are done playing the game. This book is for them, for you. If you are a man who has been betrayed by your family, your education, your government, your culture, this book is your reawakening. If you've noticed that women lie more than they admit, that feelings are weaponized against facts, that men are expected to pay, provide, protect, and then be discarded, this book names the demons. If you've been called toxic for wanting loyalty, dismissed as insecure for demanding honesty, or told you're oppressive for speaking your mind, this book vindicates you. It will not comfort you. It will not coddle you. It will not tell you that everything will be okay, but it will tell you the truth brutally, mercilessly, hilariously, so that you can finally see the world as it is, not as they want you to see it. We dismantle the feminist myth. We expose the emotional manipulation. We dissect the collapse of the family. We reveal how language has been corrupted to control thought. We show how education has become indoctrination. We prove that gender is not a social construct. It is written in chromosomes, hormones, and behavior across every culture and era. We detail the male exodus from relationships, from cities, from institutions. And we show how a new stoicism is rising among young men who refuse to be slaves to female whims. This is not for the weak. It is not for women looking for validation. It is not for feminists seeking dialogue. It is not for HR managers, diversity consultants, or campus activists. If you believe in toxic masculinity, if you think men and women are interchangeable, if you worship at the altar of emotionalism, if you think truth should bend to make people feel safe, put this book down. Go read a self-help manual, join a support group, meditate, cry into a journal, but do not read this book. You are not ready. You will not survive it. For the rest of you, the awake, the angry, the honest, this is your weapon. Your immune system, your awakening. The silent rebellion has begun, and it will not be televised. It will not be debated. It will not be stopped. The time for silence is over. Zoomerwaffen, Unapologetically Traditionalist Generation Z, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.